The panicked voice captured on the 911 recording would later prove crucial in clearing my name. "Someone has illegally changed the locks on community property," she screamed into her phone from my front porch. "I demand that officers be dispatched immediately." What HOA President Linda Garrison didn't realize was that I was listening from just inside my window and that I was about to make a very different call, one that would turn her little power grab into the worst night of her life. I had purchased the old Henderson place barely 3 weeks earlier. The house sat on Maple Ridge Drive, right along the edge where the Sunset Meadows HOA jurisdiction officially ended. The previous owner had lost the property to foreclosure, and I'd managed to buy it at a steep discount, largely because it needed extensive renovation work. What I hadn't expected was Linda Garrison showing up unannounced at my door that Tuesday morning, clutching what appeared to be an aged brass key. "Excuse me," she said sharply, her tone dripping with the confidence of someone accustomed to unquestioned authority. "I'm here for the monthly inspection." She wore a navy blazer adorned with an HOA president's pin that looked freshly polished. Her perfectly styled blonde hair didn't budge in the breeze, and her smile was tight and calculated, never quite reaching her eyes. "I think there's been some confusion," I replied evenly, placing my paint roller aside. "This is private property. I purchased it 3 weeks ago." Her smile twitched for a fraction of a second before returning even stronger. "Young man, this home is part of the Sunset Meadows HOA. We have inspection rights over every property within our jurisdiction." She raised the key as if it were a badge of office. "This master key gives me access to every home in our community." I stayed calm, though I felt a spark of amusement rising. "Ma'am, all my closing documents are inside. This property is clearly outside HOA boundaries. The survey confirms it. I don't need to see paperwork," she snapped, flicking her manicured hand dismissively. "I've been HOA president for 8 years. I know every property we control." She stepped forward, pushing the key toward my lock. "Now, if you'll excuse me, ma'am, please step back," I said firmly but respectfully. "This is private property, and you do not have permission to enter." Her face flushed a deep red, clashing violently with her coral lipstick. "How dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am?" "Linda Garrison, HOA president," I answered calmly. "But that doesn't give you authority over my home." She jabbed a finger toward my chest, her voice rising to a shrill pitch that probably terrified her own board members. "You'll be hearing from our legal team. No one defies the HOA." With that, she spun around on her designer heels and marched back to her white Lexus, slamming the door hard enough to make her HOA parking decal flutter in the window. I honestly believed that would be the end of it. I returned to painting my living room, enjoying the rare peace of owning a home free from petty HOA interference. But people like Linda Garrison don't surrender imagined power easily. Just after lunch, I heard raised voices outside. Peering through my front window, saw Linda's white Lexus parked at the curb again. She stood at my door, aggressively shoving the brass key into my lock and twisting it harder with each failed attempt. Her complexion had gone from red to purple, and she muttered angrily under her breath. I opened the door before she could damage the lock. "Can I help you with something, Mrs. Garrison?" She recoiled dramatically, clutching her chest. "You changed the locks," she accused, her voice loaded with outrage, as if I'd committed a felony. "That violates HOA bylaws. Lock changes require board approval." "Mrs. Garrison," I said patiently, "as I explained earlier, this property is not part of your HOA. And even if it were, these are the same locks that were installed when I purchased the house." Her eyes narrowed. "You're lying. That key has opened this door for years. The previous owner understood the rules. He allowed HOA access for inspections. The previous owner lost this house to the bank," I reminded her. "Any arrangement you believed existed ended with the foreclosure." That's when she pulled out her phone. "Fine," she said coldly. "If you want to play games, we'll do this the hard way." She dialed 911 with dramatic flair, flashing me a smug look. "Yes, hello. I need police officers here immediately. There's a squatter in one of our HOA properties. He's changed the locks and refuses to leave." I shook my head in disbelief as she rattled off my address with total confidence. "Yes, I'm the HOA president. I have full authority over this property. Please hurry, he seems unstable. While she continued her performance for the dispatcher, I quietly stepped back inside my home. If she wanted to involve emergency services, that was fine. I just happened to have an advantage she didn't know about. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number from memory. After 2 rings, a familiar voice answered. County Dispatch. This is Sarah. Hey, Sarah. It's David Morrison, I said calmly. I think there's a situation developing at my new place on Maple Ridge. Sarah Martinez had been one of my closest friends since high school. She'd become a dispatcher 5 years earlier and was now one of the most respected in the county. David, I heard you bought a place out there, she said. What's going on? I've got an HOA president on my porch claiming I'm squatting in my own house. I believe she just called 911 with a false report. Linda Garrison? Sarah asked knowingly. White Lexus. Blonde hair that never moves? That's her, I confirmed. She insists her HOA controls my property, but all my documents show otherwise. Parcel number 4728916. I heard rapid typing. Let me check. Okay, yes. You're absolutely right. That property sits outside the Sunset Meadows HOA boundary. Looks like it was never part of any HOA at all. That's what I've been telling her, I said. But she claims she has a master key giving her access to my home. Sarah's voice shifted to full professional mode, edged with concern. David, I'm showing an active call coming in from your address right now. She's reporting that you're a squatter and claiming HOA authority over the property. The responding units are already en route. I figured as much, I replied, glancing through the window. Linda was pacing at the edge of my driveway, waving her arms dramatically as she barked into her phone. I've got everything ready, the deed, the closing paperwork, and the land survey. All legitimate. Good, Sarah said. I'm updating the call notes now with the correct information. Officers Johnson and Pike are responding. I'll make sure they're briefed before they arrive. She paused, then added more casually, she's really claiming you're squatting in a house you bought 3 weeks ago. Apparently, her magic HOA key not working is evidence of my criminal behavior, I said dryly. She tried it earlier today. I told her the property wasn't under HOA control, and now she's back making false reports. Okay, Sarah replied, her voice turning crisp. I've flagged this as a potential false report and trespassing incident. The officers will have the full background. Just stay calm and keep your documents ready. Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. No problem. And David, she added, you might want to invest in security cameras. Something tells me this won't be her last visit. When I ended the call, Linda had finished hers as well. She stood at the end of my driveway with her arms crossed, wearing a smug little smile that clearly assumed I'd be leaving in handcuffs. I retrieved my deed, closing documents, and survey from my filing cabinet and waited on the front porch. Less than 10 minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled up to the curb. Linda immediately rushed toward them, flailing her arms. Officers, thank goodness you're here. That man, she said, pointing at me with dramatic flair worthy of daytime television, is trespassing on HOA property. Instead of charging toward me, Officer Johnson and Officer Pike walked straight past her. Mr. Morrison, Officer Johnson called as he approached my porch. That's me, I said, lifting the folder in my hands. Thanks for coming. Linda's jaw dropped. Wait, what? Why are you talking to him? He's the squatter. Officer Pike turned to her calmly. Ma'am, please step back while we sort this out. But I'm the one who called, she protested. I'm Linda Garrison, HOA president. We're aware of who you are, Mrs. Garrison, Officer Johnson replied evenly. No, please step back. I handed over my paperwork. Officer Johnson examined each page carefully. Mr. Morrison, he said, can you explain what led to this call? I described the morning encounter and her return visit, keeping my tone factual and composed. She believes her HOA has authority here, but as you can see from the survey, this parcel is outside their jurisdiction. Officer Johnson nodded, tracing the lines on the map. This is very clear. Your property ends here, he said, pointing. The HOA boundary begins about 50 feet down the road. That's impossible. Linda snapped. I have a master key. The previous owner gave us access. Officer Pike turned to her. Mrs. Garrison, do you have any documentation showing HOA authority over this address? I don't need documents, she scoffed. I've been president for 8 years. I know every home in our community. But do you have legal paperwork? Officer Pike pressed. Bylaws listing this address? A signed agreement? Her face flushed through multiple shades of crimson. The key is proof enough. Why would I have a key if we didn't have authority? Mrs. Garrison, Officer Johnson said carefully, having a key does not give you legal permission to enter someone's property. Do you have Mr. Morrison's consent to be here? I don't need his consent, she shrieked, her voice so loud that both officers instinctively stepped back. This is HOA property. Officer Johnson returned my documents and faced me fully. Ma'am, listen carefully. All legal records confirm this property is not under HOA jurisdiction. The owner has asked you to leave. You are currently trespassing, and, Officer Pike added firmly, you placed a false 911 call claiming Mr. Morrison was a squatter. That constitutes misuse of emergency services. The color drained from Linda's face. But I'm the HOA president, she whispered, as if the title were armor. That does not give you authority outside your jurisdiction, Officer Johnson said. You have 2 options. Leave now with a formal warning, or be arrested for trespassing and filing a false report. Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly. This is outrageous. I'll have your badges for this. Do you know how much influence I have? Ma'am, Officer Pike warned, his hand drifting toward his citation pad. That sounds like a threat. I strongly suggest you leave immediately. With trembling fingers, Linda clutched her useless brass key. This isn't over, she hissed at me. The HOA has lawyers. We'll prove this property belongs to us. You're welcome to try, I replied calmly. But for now, leave my property and don't return without permission. Officer Johnson escorted her to her Lexus while Officer Pike completed a trespassing warning. Mr. Morrison, Officer Pike said, handing me a copy. She comes back. Call us immediately. This is on record now. As Linda sped away, tires squealing in frustration, I thanked the officers. I appreciate your professionalism. No problem, Officer Johnson said with a faint smile. Between us, we've had multiple complaints about Mrs. Garrison. She seems to think HOA president means neighborhood sheriff. After they left, I stood quietly on my porch, savoring the calm. I locked my door with my own key, the only one that would ever open it. 3 days later, an official letter arrived from the Sunset Meadows HOA. Instead of the legal threats Linda promised, it contained a formal acknowledgement that, after reviewing property records, Parcel 4728916 on Maple Ridge Drive fell outside HOA boundaries. I had the letter professionally framed and hung beside my front door, a permanent reminder that truth backed by documentation always wins. Linda's real consequences came at the next HOA meeting. News of her 911 stunt spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Homeowner after homeowner stood up demanding answers. How many properties had she falsely claimed authority over? How often had she used that so-called master key? The vote was unanimous. Linda Garrison was removed as HOA president, effective immediately. She sat frozen as the results were announced, her mouth opening and closing while her carefully built empire collapsed. But it didn't end there. The board ordered a full audit of her actions. The findings led to a $15,000 fine for misuse of HOA funds and multiple violations of state property law. 6 months later, as a judge ordered full restitution plus legal fees, Linda's face crumpled like tissue paper in the courtroom, finally powerless, with no key left to save her.